All right, good morning. Sorry I screwed up the stream a little bit earlier today, so hopefully this will work. Looks like the audio is okay. Looks like I've got a couple of viewers on YouTube. All right, we're going to jump in. So I've been doing a series around the tool called DAX Generator, and we're building another DAX template today. And today I decided to go through some of the templates that are already existing in the Power BI community. So if you go over to search for Google or something or Bing it, you can go search for the quick measures gallery. And these are a bunch of measures or quick measures that people have created and built into the community, which are very helpful. You can kind of see what people are creating here. We've already done the Chris Webb one for star ratings. And now I'm going to go see if I can do this dynamic measures title. So this may crash and burn. This may not go very well. We're going to give it a try and we'll see what happens. So first things first, I'm going to read up on what this measure is doing. So I'm going to click on the contributor here. I guess it's R. Spanrano. I'm sorry about your name. I'm going to get it wrong. So we're going to look at this measure. So this is a dynamic switch, and here's the example. So in this report, I'll make this big so we can see it all. In this report, you have there's basically a calculation that's happening across your data model, and it's switching between different values. So average cost, average tax amount, and average price. And so as you switch these, you can see that the title of the chart is changing, as well as the numerical axis is changing, because you're actually changing average amounts of dollars or something in here. And so the measure is dynamically changing based on those values. So you're basically picking a new calculation each time you click a button here at the top. That's how I gather this. So then down below, there's some more description here. It kind of talks about a little bit more of what's going on. We're going to have 4 possible measures, average quantity. These measures are defined in a single column parameter table. Okay, so we're going to need a table to begin. So we're first going to need a table, and then this table column will be used as the slicer selection and the menu shown. Okay, I've built one of these before, and there's also some interesting help here as well, which I think is very useful here, is there's actually a sample PBIX file that we can go get and go explore it to see how this is built. So let's download the attachment. This will be a Power BI file that we can go use. And then we'll put that away for now. And let's pull up this model here. And we'll take a quick look at what's going on inside here. As Power BI Desktop opens, my guess is we're going to need a couple things here. In this example, there's actually kind of like 3 main components here. There's going to be measures that are existing inside the data model. There's going to be a table, a created table, a DAX table, which we can see over here. There we have a simple table. Yeah, let's zoom in here. Let's get the zoom it going. We have a simple table here on the right-hand side for the table for the measures. And this is the measure name. Each of the names of the measures would live in this table. And we go over here to the table name. We'll click on the table, and there we are. Average unit price, average quantity ordered. And I would assume that those are going to be inside the fact table. There we go. Let's see here. Are there any measures in here? Total sales I see. I don't see where the measures are living. Where are the measures? End date. I guess I should just search for them. I think that would probably be the easiest solution here. So let's go average. Oh, unit price. Okay, so I'm not sure where the measures are living for these different notes. Let's go back to the DAX measure here. So maybe there's a measure that I'm missing here. Fact sales. Value of total ordered. Measure name. I'm not sure I see where the measures are. Calendar. Customers. Dim products. Dim territory. Okay, maybe something's going weird in this model. I don't see it. Okay, well, we'll try and read through it anyways. This is why this may go well. This may not go well. I'm kind of trying this as we go, starting off just from scratch here. So what I do have, though, is I do have a sample data model that I've made. So this is my sample data model with my lovely pie chart there. Here's my sample data model. You can see I have a star schema with 2 fact tables here. So we have some dimensions that describe the main fact data, and then I have basically relationships between each of those items. So we can take a dimension and put that against a fact table. And so in my model here, I've got the fact sales table. So go over here to the right-hand side. We'll make this bigger. You can see I have just a bunch of measures, and these are actually doing calculations on top of columns, but these maybe would be my measures. And I want a switch measure per what that quick measure gallery item was saying is maybe I want to pick sum of profit on a chart, and then maybe I want to switch it to sum of sales. So we'll do something, we'll see if we can do something simple here and use these existing measures to make this measure table. All right, first things first, let's figure out how to make a table. So let's minimize this. I'm gonna go back to the reference material here and see what he's doing. So we have a selected measure. If this measure, if has one value, do this switch thing. So inside here, he's saying do the switch. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually grab this whole selected measure. I'm gonna go back to his data model, and I'm assuming that this will work inside his data model, just because it's hopefully gonna live here. So let me just create a new measure. Right click on that, new measure. I'll put that in there like this. Oh, formatting's all crazy. Selected measures already in use in the measure dim calendar. Oh, okay. So he's already got this one in here, so I must have missed it. So I will cancel this. It's selected measure. There it is. Great. Also, still no formatting. All right, well, we got to fix that. So let's make this readable. Shift Enter. I guess I could go grab the whole thing. Let's go over to DAX Formatter. Let's see if we can format this thing quickly. I used to have an external tool that would let you format everything. I don't think I have one. Let's see if we can add this for the future here. So I'm going to go open up Business Ops. We're going to go down to External Tools. I believe there's a gentleman in here. David Zhang has DAX Beautifier. We'll add that. Add external tool. Sure. Successfully added. Okay. Close that. Let's just minimize this one. Let's close out of this one. Let's not save it. We'll go back into that quick measures one here. So now that when you add a new external tool, just be aware that if you add an external tool, it will not be inside Power BI Desktop until you reload Power BI Desktop. Only after you reload Desktop will the external tool appear. So let's do this. Let's go to the external tools now. There we go. Now we have DAX Beautifier. I'm going to run that. It's going to run a little PowerShell script here, and it should format all my measures. So we go back to dim calendar, and let's go back over to selected measure. Oh, it didn't do anything. Oh well. All right, we'll format it by hand. If has one value, then do a switch. The switch statement will have values. All right, and so in the switch statement, we will have, you're going to grab so the switch statement is working on top of the values from the table. Then we have these, a space here. So here's each of our three measures. So we have one measure, two measure, average, and I'm going to make this bigger once I get this all formatted so we can see it a little bit easier. Shift Enter that one. Another Shift Enter. Okay, so we're getting the picture here. So we've got these named items from the table. And then we've got the end of the switch statement here. So that's the average. This is the end of the switch statement. And then here, okay, so he has a default value. So if we have one value, so okay, this is how I read this. Let me run this again. Okay, so he's doing, if this has one value, so that means if it's one value that has been selected, it returns a true or a false. If that is true, then we will look at whatever value is inside the switch statement. So it's going to do a switch on the value. So this will basically select one of the items from this list. So a values function is returning a list. Essentially, it's a single column table on this column name. And then what it's doing then is, based on what's returned in the switch statement, it will select one of these items down below. So when this switch value decides that this is, hey, we've selected average unit price, it'll then give us all these other tables. Okay, so I think I understand what they're trying to accomplish. And now that we've formatted it, it's much easier for us to read. So I'll click the OK button. Hopefully everything still works. Looks like we're all still happy. Okay, let's see if we can turn this into a template. So a couple of things I think we're going to need here. We're going to need first is a table. So I've got to create a table with some measure names in them. Now, how I'm going to do this. So a table with measure names in it. Let's look at how that's being created. It looks like this table is being created with an M statement. Edit query. Okay, so this is interesting. So this is a table that's being used within an M table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and rebuild this table, but I'm going to do it in DAX because I want to be able to build the DAX table, because then DAX generator can then create the table for me, and then we can use those parameters for other things. So let's see if we can rebuild this table. I'm going to make Google some things here to get this correct. Let's go here to the home. Let's go to modeling. Let's do new table. And we're going to call this one, we're going to kind of repeat the naming schema here. So table parameter param measures 2. So I'm going to just name my a new version of this one. Now I've got to remember what's the function to generate a table. I think it was a table. Was it data table? All right, so data table I think is what we want. And I believe this is going to allow us to grab a column name. What's the documentation on this? Name, type. Okay, name and type. Okay, so first thing it's going to say is we're starting off with the name and type. So this is the data table documentation, not as robust as we need. We might go over to DAX.guide here in a bit to look this up a little bit more. But the data table basically says, I think we're saying this is the column name, and then we define the data type of that column, and then you add in the data that's inside that column. So the name of the column will be measure name, because look, we have in the existing table. And I'm sorry, this is really small. Let me zoom this in a bit more. I'll bring up the chat window too here, just in case I need to see people chatting on YouTube. Okay, so we're going to go here. We're going to say data table, and we're going to first make the measure column name. So this is the column in the table. So measure name. Okay, and then we're going to tell it a type. So I believe this is going to be a string. Okay, so now we've created the column and the name of the column. So the next part is we now need to go decide, okay, it's going to keep asking for more columns. So you can make multiple columns here if you want, but I don't want that now. Now I want to enter the data. I believe I need to use the brace here. And I think because I'm a single column table, I only need quotes on this one. I'm going to, hopefully my syntax is correct here. So in this case, we need the 4 names of the measures that he's already created. So I'm going to go, let's just close that off here. It's probably going to be an array of objects. So if I'll do an array of items like that, and then I'll close off data table. So hopefully this won't break. Okay, so it worked. I just need to know what names are in the table. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to go back to the table names. I'm going to just grab a quick screenshot of this so I have the individual names of all the columns so I know what to type. I'm going to go into my calculated table. Now I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's go to Paint here. Paint. Drop in my note. Okay, so I have my notes. So now we have a data table. We have the column name and then the string. So let's shift enter that. That's the first row. Next, we're going to go enter the data for this piece of information here. So this is the arrayed object of all the different elements that we're going to produce here. So for each item, I have this syntax for an object. So the first object in our list here will be average unit price. That's our first item. Our second item will be average quantity ordered. Okay. And let's make this easier to read. So I'll just shift enter that down. And then we'll do another one. Shift enter here. And then this one will be average tax amount. All right, and then the last one here, this one will be average product cost. Close enough. Hitting enter now will create this DAX table. So I basically manually created this table. Now, interesting here is each of these 3 items, 1, 2, 3, and 4, everything in this table can be repeated into a standard template. The 4 things that we need are the different measures. These are the measures that we would create, or we would select these measures as part of the parameterization of this table, which is pretty cool. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over here to this selected measure, and I don't like the fact that this is in the dim calendar table. It seems to make no sense to me. So I'm actually going to move it out into the table for parameter measures here. So we're going to move that by going to the measure tools and clicking the home table and then changing it to table measures. So if I look at this is the same. So now we're trying to parameterize this piece. In this area, we have the selected measure item. We have a table column name. So this is the measure table that we're creating. And then we have, again, the same item for each of these measures. Oh, interesting. Okay, so this is interesting to me. We have the unit average price, and in here, he's actually doing the calculation for average. So I would expect that there would be actually a measure named this thing. So I would probably assume that my model has 3 measures. And so instead of using the syntax of average of fact sales price, I would instead add the measure itself directly in line here. All right, so we've got a default value, an average, so the default value is here. Okay, I think I know how to parameterize this now. Okay, so now that I've gotten this kind of all built out, so what I'm going to do again is I'm going to rebuild my selected measure, but this time I'm going to do something a little bit different here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to build out a little bit more of my measures here just to make sure I can prove that this works. Right click, new measure, and then I'm going to run this, and this will be average sales fact, I think it was. Average, oh, sorry, just kidding, unit price. So that is my measure, average unit price. And then I will need the other averages as well. So let's grab this other one here. Right click here again, new measure. We're going to drop this guy in here, and this will be, our next one will be average quantity ordered, like that. Hit enter there. So now what I'm doing is I'm creating the individual measures that will be picked up in our selected measure name. So let's create another one here. Right click, new measure. Oh shoot, I forgot to copy the other one. Let's go back here to this one. We want the average tax amount. So copy that. Right click here, new measure. Drop that in there. Now this one will be average tax amount. Enter on that one, and we got one more to do. So we can pull all of these out and generalize this statement a bit more. Let's go right click here, new measure. Drop that in. And so now this will be the last one, average product cost. Oops, lowercase c-o. Okay, so now I've got all my measures. The next thing I need to do is I need to just make sure I can rebuild this measure here. So this is using the selected measure. So I'm going to just basically copy this again. Copy this. We'll go into the new table, right click, new measure here. I'm just going to rebuild this so I understand how it's working. And instead, it's going to whine at me if I have the same name twice. I'm going to just call it 2 again. And now this time, I'm going to use, instead of using the original table measures by measure name, I'm going to use my new table. So this is new table label 2. Label 2. So that's happy there. That changes those 2 items. And then now, instead of using the average here, I'm going to use existing measures. So I'm going to delete that out. Instead, I'm going to call off the average product cost. And this is the measure that I created earlier. And the reason I'm doing this is this way will it'll allow me to parameterize this a little bit easier as we build other stuff. So let's go average quantity ordered. Let's again here go to average tax amount. So let's go average tax amount. And we notice here that each of the listed items here are automatically added to, I mean, it's basically the same naming schema for both of them. So this is going to be average product cost. Oh, I did it wrong in the first one here. This is not product cost. That would have been weird when I added your unit price. Okay, all right, good. And then the last part here is if we don't have anything, if we have multiple items selected for whatever reason, we're going to default it to some sort of value. So let's get rid of that. And then instead, we'll just do average unit price. I think this cleans it up a little bit. Okay, I like this. I think this is going to work. You can even, format it so it's like nice and pretty if you want, like that. Add some spaces. Okay, everything's happy. Feel good about this. All right, let's zip over to DAX template generator, and we're going to make a template for this, and then we're going to use it and add it into our data model. So the things that we need to be aware of are the table column name. So this is going to be a table that we're going to need to create. So we need to create that first. And then once we've created that, then we can create the selected measure part. All right. So we're going to go back to, all right, so everything's working fine there. All right, so next, let's go back over, let's build out some of this stuff. So let's go over to DAX.PowerBI.tips. So the next thing we need to do is go over here, and we'll get rid of this window. We'll pop in a new one. So next, go over to DAX.PowerBI.tips, and this is where we can start building templates. So the first thing we need to build is our template table. So let's just, this is going to probably come in, we technically can build this all in one template, but right now that DAX generator doesn't use two encodings. So I'm going to build this as two templates initially, and then maybe I'll go back and rebuild it as one later on. So this is going to be measure table, and we're going to enter description here, create a table with a list of measures to use in a measure switch statement. And this is just really around to like explain what you're doing or what you're building. All right, our first thing here is when we look at this measure that we created earlier, let's go to the table here, creation. So in here, everything's going to be standard. So I'm going to actually grab this entire array here, this entire object. This is the DAX statement. So I'm going to grab the entire DAX statement, Control C that. We're going to go back over here to template generator. I'm going to dump this in the formula area. And I know that I need to get rid of the table names because that's not here. I'm going to get rid of that. So Control X that, get rid of that. And I'm going to put that up here. So we're going to have the table name up top. The expression will be down below. And now we're creating a table. So I'll create a table like this. So this will then create a table. And so we'll say, well, we need to enter a description for this. So a table that is used to create a list of measures from the model. Okay. Now, things that we need to generalize: the average unit price, the average quantity order. There's 4 inputs here. Okay. So now we need 4 parameters. So I'm actually going to click the parameters plus button down here, and let's make this big again. I'm going to go, we already got 1. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. So there's the 4 inputs that we're going to use. And so this will be, instead of parameter 1, this is going to be measure 1. And then I'm just going to call it measure 1 like this. That way it's kind of easy for us to read. There is no default set. We would probably want a description for this parameter. Select your first measure to be used in the switch statement. So let's make it generic. Select a measure, because I can reuse this in the switch statement. This is going to be a string because it's going to be just some text, and we're looking for the name of the measure. So I'm going to select the input user selection of a measure. Okay, so now we need to repeat this. I should probably make a duplicate button, but we'll get there. Okay, measure 2 here. We're going to call it measure 2 again. So we'll do that. Measure number 2. We're going to keep the same naming schema. We'll put that here for the name parameter. It's going to be a string. It's going to be a measure. So this will be measure number 3. Measure 3. Copy that. Put it down here. Get rid of that. Boop. Let's copy this thing. Copy that. Zip, zip, zip. Okay, so we got measure number 3 there. And then we need measure number 4. So this is the 4th measure of this. Probably could have done less measures in general on this, but that's okay. This is good for example sake. We're going to use the same description. Like that, string, and a measure. Okay, so now we have 4 input parameters. So the reason I do this, on the right-hand side of the screen here, you'll see there's an evaluated measure expression area where we have measure 1, 2, 3, 4. These are basically the parameters that we're going to use. So now what we need to do is we need to go back to our table, or what we're generating here, and we need to replace relevant pieces of this so that it matches what we have in the parameter. So I'm going to go grab measure 1, copy that. I'm going to go over to the expression here, and I want to replace this hard-coded value with a property, the parameter. So that's where we're going to inject measure 1. And you'll see over here down below, instead of saying average quantity, it just replaces the name of that object with whatever parameter value that we've listed. So these are the keys, or these are the parameters that we're going to inject into the data model. So I'm going to take parameter 2, move that over here. That's measure 2. And grab measure 3, copy that, put it over here. That's measure 3. And then measure 4, copy that, and then drop that in here. So now what we've done is we basically parameterize this statement. So we can make a generic statement here, and I don't want to table parameter measures. I don't like this naming schema, so let's just call this measure table, or measure switch table. Let's go with that. Measure switch table. I mean, this could be changed after the fact, but for now we're going to use that as a name of our table. None of this stuff I think makes sense down here because this is all measure related, so we can turn that. We can ignore that. This is going to be, I don't think what category this is going to fit into. I'll call it text because it's a text table. Authors of this one will be Mike, Carlo, and I'm going to add the author of the originator of this idea. So who is the gentleman here? We're going to grab this guy's name. I'll just copy that for his measure, and I'll add him there. All right, the instructions. All right, so this is where we can describe what this measure is doing. This measure allows you, this table creates a list of measures, basically what it does. And then you can select 4 different measures from your data model. And that's really basically all we have for the instructions. So now support URLs are kind of fun. So support URLs let you kind of link to where the information was residing. So if I maximize this, I get a full Power BI report, so I can copy that link. That will probably be relevant. We probably want to copy the actual support URL. So let's go here. This is the first URL where the gallery came from. The next one we want to put in there probably is related to, oops, did I close the window accidentally? I think I did. No, I didn't. It's down here. The next one we'll probably want to go is grab the actual report. So we'll grab the report URL. We'll grab that one. Put that in here. And then next we will go back and we will go grab another item off of this. Let's go to this one again. And let's go grab, we can also right-click download the download PBX file. So I can right-click this and say copy link address. And over here, I can add a third support URL that'll actually give you the PBX file that it will download, which is kind of cool. So now we can have a link to, download the actual sample file that goes along with this measure. I think we've got this one done. This one looks pretty good. So now I'm going to hit download file. This will create a quick DAX template.json file, and it'll load it to my desktop here. So basically, we've built this table now. We're ready to load it into my data model. So here's my star schema. This is my star schema here. And next, I'll run up DAX generator. So I'll open that up by clicking the button on the tool ribbon. It will open up my templates here, and I'm going to grab my statement, and I'll just drag it and drop it here. And you'll know the icon changes, so we can drop the measure table in here. And there we go. So now we have this measure table being populated. So we have the URLs, we have our instructions, we can see what the template is doing here, and then we can go right here, and now we can go through our data model. So here we can click the measure 1. So the first measure will be sum of cost of goods. Next one will be, let's go sum of profit. Next one will be sum of sales, and next one will be sum of units sold. So we've selected our measures, and now we need to generate the standard table that the measure will sit inside. So we'll hit generate on this. It'll give you a sample of how this is going to look. This looks fine to me. I don't need all this extra thing here for URLs and links, so I'm actually going to get rid of this extra URLs. Don't need that. This looks fine. And then I'll hit create or update. What this will do now is it'll go back to my data model, and it will manually create this table for me. So I minimize this, and now I have a switch table with that. And there's my statement. So it injected it in here and made it with the name I wanted. It gave me the column name called measure name, and then I have all my different measures already built out. And these are already labeled that are inside my data model. This is super efficient. So now I can take this to any number of reports, and anytime I have 4 measures or more, I can just go select some measures, and now I can create a table, and the DAX statement is automatically generated for me. I'll click refresh now because it's added a new table. It needs me to refresh it so it can understand what's going on. Boom, done. All right, so now we need to build the selection measure part. So let's go build the other half of this. So we're going to go jump back over to the quick measure gallery creator here. So let's go back over to DAX.PowerBI.tips. we've made the first half of this, which is good. I would like to, so you'll notice here at the bottom, and I'm just going to point this out for now, we're working on some feature functionality that we'll be able to add another encoding. So if you can think with me, right, I created the initial table, and then inside this table, I want to create a measure or add a measure into this. So technically, I could add another encoding, and then we could start adding measures inside a next statement. Today, DAX generator that Didier has made does not quite support this, but we're looking at supporting this so that way we can have a sequence of things that we create. Create a table, then create measures, and those measures can use objects from the table. So if you can see how this thing can create multiple data elements for you and make it really easy for you to build DAX really quickly. And again, make these templates so it just works. So I'm going to trash this for now. Instead of doing this, instead of building it all out in one large template, I'm actually going to go back over. I'm going to make a new page here, DAX.PowerBI.tips. And so now we're going to build the other half of this. All right, so we're going to go over here, and we're now going to go to, let's go back to the measures area. Let's see what we were doing in that measures. So let's go back to the template here, if I can find where I put it. Okay, here's the template. All right, so next we want to do is we want to build the selected measure part. Okay, so that's what we're going to go do next. Let's go back over to the quick measures example here. And then now we want to build selected measure 2. So same thing that we did with before, but this time we're going to have the average unit price shown up here, but we're also going to add it as a measure over here. So this is 2 parameters, but this time we need one, like basically a 5th measure in here that's going to be the measure name. So this will be the top portion here where we have the name of the table where this information is coming from. All right, so next step is, I think we're going to need to go, let's grab this whole thing, copy that. Let's go back over to DAX templates here. Let's see if I can duplicate this so I don't have to redo my work. Let's duplicate. Did it repeat the thing? No, it makes me start over again. Okay, so, oh well. It makes me rewrite it from scratch. So let's just start from scratch. So this will be selected measure, and this will be creates a single measure that selects from an array, I guess a list from a list of predefined measures. Good enough for me. Okay, so same thing. We're going to rebuild this measure again. Oh man, it would have been nice if I could just have this thing work on top of both of them. It is what it is. We'll get there. We'll improve it slightly. So first things first, I want to take this DAX statement. This is what we're going to do, and this is going to be my selected measure. So we're going to go down here to the encoding. I will drop that in the expression formula area, and then we need to get rid of the name, so get rid of that. I'll leave the equal sign that needs to stay there. Oops. I don't want to do that. We want to enter the name of this. So this will be selected measure, will be the name of this measure. And now we've got to go through and we've got to parameterize this thing. So we have a table and column combination. So that's going to be our first parameter. We need to parameterize this first object. So we'll go back up here and we're going to make parameter number 1. And this will be I like labeling it what it is, table column. So this is our table column description of what this is. And so what we're going to do here is select a single column from the data model. And then from this, oh, I forgot to turn on the music. There we go. From this, we'll say this is going to be a string value, and this is going to be a table column selector. This tells DAX generator what kind of selection we're going to make. And so with that, we now have our first parameter. So we'll grab parameter 1, copy that, and we will add that over here and replace this with table parameter 1. Paste that in there. So we've made our first parameter. The next thing is we have to go through a couple other times. See, we have a values list here, so we need to replace this as well. So we need to go back here and replace this object. So let's replace that. So now we have parameter 1 there. I don't see anywhere else. Now we need to go through and add unit price on all the different elements here. So let's see if I can I format this so it looks good? Maybe it'll be okay. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit off. It might be weird when it comes out formatted. All right, the next thing is we need 4 more parameters. 1 for average unit price, 1 for quantity owner tax, and average cost because we're doing four items. Okay, so now we need 4 more measures or parameters. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And I'm just gonna, for the lack of being lazy here, I'm just gonna increment the numbers on this one. So this will be parameter 2, this will be parameter 3, and this will be parameter 4, and we should have one more for 5. Yes, we do. Parameter 5. Okay, so now we go through here, and now we want to have, this is measure 1. Select a measure from your data model. This will be a string and a measure that we're going to select from the data model. Measure 3, same thing. So this will be measure 2. I don't think I need a space in there. Let's leave it measure 2. And then here we're going to say, select a measure for your data model. Copy that. String and a measure. Measure 3. Same thing. Select a string for your data model, string and measure. And parameter 5, same thing. Measure 4. Description, string, and measure. Okay. So now we've gotten all of those made. So now we have to take each of these parameters 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then parameterize the rest of the statement so it can be reused. So average unit price is the one we're going to replace with measure number 2. So I right-click on parameter 2 on the right-hand side here. So go parameter 2, copy that. We'll replace average unit price like that. And then inside the brackets, I'll replace that as well because we're just going to get the name of parameter 2. So we're just going to repeat that. And we're going to leave the quotes there because that's the syntax required to make this work. Then parameter 3, I'll copy that. We're going to replace average quantity ordered with parameter 3. And then same thing in here. Oh, this is really going to bother me. 1, 2, 3. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. See if I can get these all to line up here a little bit. Looks like it's 4 maybe. All right, so average tax amount, parameter 4, copy that. Get rid of that one, parameter 4, paste that there. And paste it here. Let's get rid of this. 1, 2, 3, 4. We got that spaced out correctly. And then parameter 5, our last one here, copy that. We'll do average cost. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll delete out the rest of this junk. And replace the last part of the statement here. Boom. Now we do need to replace average unit price. I don't remember which one that was, but we'll just, for kicks and giggles, we'll just do that as parameter number 2. So we'll replace that here. Like that. Let's fill out the rest of this thing. So measure used to select, let's call a single, I can't spell single, a single measure that toggles between other calculations. You can add whatever you want there. Don't need anything else in there. We're going to call this text again because it's a text. Let's just go math observation. We'll go with math ops. Authors, we'll just go my Carlo again. I'll go get the gentleman's name who created the measure originally. Let's go snag that name here. Copy that. Add another author. And I'll fill out the instructions and or the support URLs later on. We'll just do this for the sake of argument of making this work. Hopefully it will work. Download this measure. And now we've got 2 measures, 2 DAX templates. So I'll go back over to DAX template generator. Open that back up. And then I'm going to grab my next one here. And now we have the selected measure. Same thing. So this time we're going to change the name. The name here is selected measure. And then we can see now in this list, we have 5 parameters. Now, thankfully, I did a good job on this one, or not such a good job. I just kind of arbitrarily picked some random measures, so I want to make sure these match. So the names of these measures must match the measures I'm going to select again. So I'm going to put that up there like this, and now I'm going to go through and do this again. So the table we're going to go get the information from is parameter number 1. So I'll click this, and it's going to list all the tables in my data model. There's my measure switch table. I'll grab that, and there it is. So that's my measure switch table. Something doesn't look right there on the end. It's grabbing. Oh, I picked the wrong one. See what I did there? See, it's saying select a table and column. I did something wrong in my template. Shoot. All right, let's go back to my template. That's why I leave these up here. I screwed that up. instead of parameter 1, see I have table column. So this is technically not a table and column. Realistically, I only need the table name. So I should actually switch this to just be a table. And instead of that, well, maybe I was wrong there. Hold on. Let's go back to the DAX statements. I might have been doing that right. Hold on, let me just double check. It is. It's table and measure name. Okay, I selected the wrong item. That was my fault. Okay, I did make the template correct. I'm gonna click this again. Instead of doing just the table name like I clicked on, I'm gonna click on table and measure name like I wanted. Okay, now this looks correct. Okay, table name and column name, perfect. Measure parameter number 2. And now I need to match. So sum of cost of goods, that's my first one. Parameter 3 would be sum of profit. Parameter 4 would be sum of sales, and then parameter 5 will be sum of units sold. Now the reason I'm making these match is because these are the order of the measures that are in the other one, and so I need to know each one is going to match. You might be able to get them out of order, I'm not sure, but we can test that later on. All right, this looks pretty good. Let's hit generate. This is the statement that it will create. Sum of cost of goods, all the syntax looks all right. Yeah, I like it. So I'm going to hit create and update. It's going to ask me where to put it. I'm going to put it in my sum of measure table. Boom, done. All right, so I've been able to make 2 templates now. One where we created the table initially, and then where we created the measure. And now let's see if we can use it. So I'm going to go grab the dim date table. Let's put the date range here on a line chart. And then we will grab the selected measured item. So by default, okay, it's working. We've got a selected measure, and by default, the default value of this one will be sum of cost of goods. And so what we can do is add the measure name up here as a slicer, like we had in the example. And so now I have a slicer. Sorry, this is really small. Let's see if I can make this a little bit wider here so it's a little bit bigger. Let's click the paint roller here. Let's change the, let's click the paint roller now. Let's go to the page size. Let's change this to custom and make this a little bit narrower, 800. And let's go by 600. Seems to be a good demo size of things. Okay, so now if I change to sum of profit, there it goes. Sum of sales, yeah. Sum of cost, yep, looks like it's working. So we've got this changing, so it's working. So we've been able to repeat this measure. And so the last thing I'll state here is I made 2 templates to make this one item. It's okay, not ideal. Ideally, what we would like to do is we'd like to make 1 template for everything. Just have it all work together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my original template here. And this is where we create DAX expression 1, where we create the switch table. So this is the statement 1. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to add 1 more parameter for the table name. So this will be parameter, this will be created table name, like that. I'm going to copy that down. Copy that, put that here. And then this will be, this is a parameter. So select, actually this is not a selection. Let's see here, what will we call this? Okay, so this is going to be the switch. So this is basically, we want a default value, this one. All right, so this is the name of the table that we're going to be creating. So I'll put that there. And then this is enter the name for the selected measure table. Okay, it's going to be a string. Now this one's just purely the user input. So this is just a text string that the user will enter. So we'll make it a user input. The user can define this. So instead of having the table name be hard-coded as switch measure table, we can now grab this property and we can switch it out here like this. So it now creates a new, the name of the table becomes a parameter. And now we can build the encoding for the second half of this. So we go back to our DAX templates. We'll go back down here to this element here. And then in this one, we're going to repeat this. And we'll drop it here in our second encoding. We'll go back here to DAX templates and we'll grab the selected measure object up here at the top. We'll put that in here at the top. Okay. So in this one, we kind of have to rearrange some of the parameters here. So we have measure 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have the created table name. So I've got to rebuild this slightly. We know that parameter 1 was our table names originally. So I'm going to click the created table name like this, drop it in there, drop that in there. So those are our 2 created table names. Actually, it's not a table, honestly. It's I think this was with table and column. So I'm going to need 2 parameters, I think. I think I'm going to need the table name and then, just trying to think this through. Because I'm going to enter the table name, but I want the table name and the column combination. So I think I need to add some syntax here. So this is going to be just the table name only. So I'm going to add the column name at the end of that. And then the column name that we generated above here is going to be called measure name. So I'll copy that down. So we're going to basically inject the table name and then the measure name below. Yeah, okay. So this is a parameter. This is not. And to make sure that the table name is correct, we need to add quotes around that. So I'll add quotes around those. So that'll be the name of the table in text form. And that will protect us against any spaces in the table names. And then lastly, we can go through measure 1, paste those in, measure 1, measure 2, measure 3, and then measure 4. Copy all those in here. And then we're going to use measure 1 here again at the bottom for our default value. And there we go. So this second encoding is going to be a measure. And we're going to put this one, it'll ask us to select where to put it. So we should say measure that toggles between calculations. And then we don't want to hide the measure by default. We don't want to put it in a folder. We will leave it at general, no parentheses, use 1000 separator, and there we go. So now we have another template. So now we've been able to stack 2 templates together. So if I download this file, now this won't work in DAX generator because we haven't built the functionality yet, but the idea here is you can have many, many measures at the top, and now you have this multiple encodings here at the bottom, where we can say, okay, encoding first, the first encoding we're going to do is all about creating a table. Then our next encoding will be all about creating a measure. So then we can create the table first, have all those selected measures be repeated, and then we can recreate the measure below it, again, using those same measures again. So I'll save this template for now. We're not going to go too much deeper in that one, but I think that's about it. The last step of this will be kind of wrap all these things up, and we will put everything here, all the content we created today. We will go to GitHub, and we will add it to our DAX templates. So I will, in here, GitHub DAX templates, and I'll put this in the chat window just in case you want to find it. That's where you can do that. So if you're so inclined and you want to build some of your own DAX templates, please watch this video, go through, build a couple of your own DAX templates. There's going to be more templates showing up here, and we're going to kind of keep building more from the community. So this is really a truly community-generated quick templates or quick measures or quick measure gallery that we're going to be building. So I'll keep doing these videos. I'll keep building templates, and hopefully you'll get more familiar with building your own templates. Hopefully we can speed you up and save you a lot of time. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your time today. We'll talk to you next week.